Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. In today's episode, I wanted to perform a little customer support test between the three most influential or biggest companies in the e-note-taking world, which are the Boox, Supernote, and the Remarkable. And what I wanted to actually test out was to pick an issue that I have with either or each of these platforms, a real issue, not a made-up issue, but a real thing that falls roughly into the same category, so that the level of service and the type of service or the customer service is actually tackling the same type of issue. And the type of the issue is something that they cannot solve as a customer support because it's a feature or a functionality that needs to be resolved in a future update. And that way, I'm kind of testing out what's the internal mechanisms of the companies, what are the company policies, how they approach this, and all of this kind of stuff. So I picked the following for the Remarkable. I was approaching the customer support with the issue of the new scaling system, which is really bad, and the infinite pages scrolling. If there's an option to disable that, because I don't want to use it and I find it distracting, can I disable it? And if not, can I downgrade the OS version to the previous version, the 2.9 point something, or 2.14 I think it was, or 15, that doesn't have those issues. For the Supernote, I was picking the shared selection tool clipboard, which means that on the Supernote you still can't just take handwriting that you make in a document, use the marquee selection tool, copy that, and then paste it into a notebook, or vice versa, because the selection clipboard memory is not shared, it's not unified. They're keeping it separate for documents, separate for notebooks, which is something that Boox and Remarkable, for example, have and have had for a very long time. It's something that's very much needed, I think, on the Supernote platform. So that was my question. Hey, I'm trying to copy handwritten content from a document to a notebook or from a notebook to a document, and I can't do it. Is that something that you can, that I'm doing wrong? Or is that a feature that you have in plan or something like that? And for the Boox, I also picked an option which is something that a real option as well, and that is that when I'm exporting handwritten annotations or a document with handwritten annotations, they have obfuscated the option of actually exporting that PDF with the markings rasterized down as a bitmap into the document. Why is that important for me? Well, for example, when at the end of the year, when I wanted to export my MDO from Boox, it was huge, and mainly because Boox now restricts you to only exporting the vector data or vectorized data in a marked up PDF document, which is of course a lot bigger as far as data goes. Now, that is great because you can edit it and then you can use it, and it's like really flexible, and it's much more flexible with various readers. So I get that. It's definitely a useful option to have, but it would be extremely useful and normal to have the option of actually choosing to export as a bitmap, rasterized bitmap onto the pages of the PDF, because that's dramatically lower in file size, and that's excellent for archiving, because when you're done with the document, you know that you're not gonna edit it anymore, then you just burn it all in, and there you go. So it's faster to export, it's easier to manage, and all of these things. And they have that option for the notebooks, but as I said, it's obfuscated on the reader side of things. So that was my question. I'm trying to export my handwritten marked PDF file, and I want to export it as rasterized bitmap, but I can't find that option. can I do it and what am I doing wrong? So those are the 3 case scenarios that I approached the customer service, and approached them through their official channels. So Remarkable has their support channel on their website where you submit the form, and that's that. Supernote, you can send an email or a feedback directly from the device, a support question directly from the device. I sent it directly from the device. And on the Boox, also, I went to the feedback section in the settings, and I sent the question directly from my device. So that's the premise of this test. And now let's check out and see how did each one of them actually fare in some different categories, and how do they fare overall. So the first category for me would be the confirmation communication. So that involves either an email that confirms that they received a support question with preferably an ID number that you can actually track for the support ID. And here both the Supernote and the Remarkable score 10, which is the full marks, because I have received immediately upon sending and registering a support question, immediately I received a confirmation email with the support case ID, so all good there. Unfortunately, with Boox, there was no confirmation whatsoever. There was no customer support ID or anything like that. It was just like crickets. You just sent it, it's there, and there you go. So the second category that I was looking at was the response time. Now I intentionally sent the email on a Saturday evening, right? So it's midnight, so it's near midnight, it's a Saturday, so I don't expect support to actually reply during non-working hours. So for me, it was a test to see does anyone support or reply during weekends or not? And if so, how does it work? Because if you actually send out a request during the weekend, it can pile up a little bit, and then they have to get through it on Monday, etc., etc. So that was the reasoning behind this whole thing. And they scored in the following way. The Supernote scored 5, but that's an aggregate score because there's a huge asterisk that's really important here. Their initial score was 0. That their first mark was 0 because I didn't receive any kind of reply for 14 days, right? So it obviously, that support question just slipped through their cracks completely. So that, in my mind, is a 0. It's not even 1. And then I sent the second reminder, basically, hey, what's going on? I've sent you a request 14 days ago. Can you please update me? And then I received the response immediately, like within, I don't know, 10-15 minutes or something like that. And that would be a score of 10. So then you can have an aggregate score of 0 and 10. So 2 scores, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that's how I came to that score of 5 for Supernote. Remarkable scored quite well as a 9 because they replied immediately on Monday morning, and that was very, very well, and it's a very, very good type of response time, something that I would expect from a good customer support system. Boox scored a 7 here because it took them around 3 days to reply to my initial feedback, and their replies are all in the same feedback area of the device itself. Now, in the communication category, Supernote scores a 7, and in the communication category, I'm looking at clarity of writing, command of English language, the professional niceties such as hello, sorry, thank you, and all of these kinds of things. So we start off with the Supernote, and they scored actually quite good. The first response was hello there, thanks for your feedback. Sorry for the trouble. So they check out all of the boxes there. And then they asked, would you please confirm the question? It seems that mail has been missed before. So that is basically in reference to my second email to kind of nudge them and see what's going on. And then they replied, and basically the second response was also courteous and quite okay, though the command of English language is not that great, and it's a little bit kind of on a let's say kind of a little bit of a raw side of things, not necessarily something that I dislike. I actually personally prefer that, but I know that quite a lot of people and customers do tend to like some more niceties in their responses here. So yeah, those are the things to kind of keep in mind. But as far as the communication goes, it was clear, down to the point, not perfect English, not perfect punctuation and formatting, but certainly understandable and helpful. The next one was the remarkable, and they score a very high 9 mark here. And they score that simply because their communication is very, very professional. The command of English language is actually perfect, and they strike all of the niceties, all of the professional niceties and etiquettes, well, some of one of those, in a very good way, because here's their response, for example: "Dear Voice Love, thank you for reaching out to us with your valuable input, and I'm sorry that we've been unable to respond over the weekend. We want to make sure that our specialists have a chance to look into your detailed inquiry." Right? So right out of bat, the formatting of the sentences, the completeness of the sentences, the command of the English language, it's all there, and that exudes a certain level of confidence. This is why that type of communication is kind of important, because it exudes like, oh, this is a professional company, they know what they're doing, they're on top of these things, they are holding themselves up to a certain level, etc., etc. So that's within the communication category. As you mentioned, in the latest software issue, we introduced a number of new features, some that replaced our others, and some that are completely new. Our customer research indicates that these features will be useful in the daily workflow of many of our customers. So now we're getting into the fluff part of the content stuff. So that's where some of the points actually go down, because there's like a lot of kind of fluffy stuff here, and it's borderline marketing / customer support language, and that's something that is not actually helpful for the customers. So that's why some of the points have been deducted. So that is the level of the remarkable. So really, really good communication score there. Boox has a lower score at 6, and it's simply because their communication is very, very raw. So my question was down here. It's truncated but basically it's what I've talked about. And then their response is like 3 days later. So, hello, are you exporting in Reader or in Notes? I've already said that in my communication here, but that's a different category. If it is a note, you can long press the note, share export, and set it as a bitmap PDF. No punctuation. It's just it's like really raw, down to the point, and it's like, okay, it's like a conversation with somebody on the street or something like that. So it doesn't really exude this level of professional security that people, especially in the Western market, do crave. You do kind of want the company, when they respond to you, to have a certain level of officialness, right? And certain standards. And this one is more like you chatting to a friend that can help you out, or somebody on a forum that can help you out, than interacting with an official representative from a company. And that's something that some people may prefer, but I know that quite a lot of people do not prefer that. And also it's a very kind of it's like yeah, what do you want? That, okay, do that. So helpful, yes, to a degree, but as far as grading communication skills and the quality of communication, it's actually rather low. Then we get to the competency category, and in the competency category, I was looking at the competency of the customer support representative and the competency of the customer support that I have received as a customer. So it's a twofold thing, right? Because the customer support representative has to work within the realms and the confines of the company that they're working for. which is perfectly normal. So there's going to be areas where their hands are going to be too tied, or limitations of what they can do, say, promise, etc. So here, Supernote scores actually a 10, a perfect score, and I'm going to explain why I would give Supernote such a high score. Well, first of all, they responded once they responded. So the response time, it was really bad, and I've explained that. But once they responded and they were actually aware of the issue, the response time was excellent, but the clarity of communication, while the communication was not on the super fluffy level, the quality and the competency was absolutely perfect. And here's what I mean. Hello there. Thanks for your clarify. Oops, English not that good. But in the first sentence, it is not a functionality at the moment. That is addressing my question and providing a non-fluffed answer, a direct answer, a clear answer, everything that I need in the first sentence of their reply. That is a very, very big and important thing, because companies tend to fluff up their answers and kind of shroud them here and there and just, do different things, as you'll see in the remarkable response. And then they continue to actually exceed my expectations, such as, specifically, this is about the clipboard. Competency, again, perfect score, because they're addressing the issue directly and they're explaining the issue in a very, very good way. So it's about the clipboard. Now we have two separated clipboards, one for note, one for document. So that means that you cannot copy across. So the first sentence directly addresses and gives an answer to my question. The second sentence directly addresses and explains the problem and the issue, and that they are aware of it. And the third sentence actually tells me exactly, not only are they aware of it, but they're planning for it, and furthermore, they also offer the details of when I might expect to see that implementation to be implemented, because they say, later we will combine it into one, as we planned here. They provide a link to their roadmap Trello, which is a project planning and management platform, and they are clearly talking about unifying the clipboard for the documents and notes. And they also go further, one step further, which is they tell me when they do it, when they plan to do it, which is when we finish the dual window here, as it will be critical at that time. So this is a perfectly competent and complete answer. Zero fluff, zero garbage, everything down to the point, and in 3 sentences that could be better grammatically and punctually kind of made, but the content of the competency is absolutely perfect, because after reading only 3 sentences, I got the answer to my question, I got the explanation of what the issue is, and I got the clarification that it's on their radar, they're planning to do it, and when can I expect to see it? Pretty much perfect in my book. Then we check the competency of the remarkable, and it actually scores a 7, and that's me being a little bit generous as well, because here's why. So their first response was, thank you for reaching us with your valuable input and Okay, as you mentioned, in the latest software release, we introduced a number of new features, some that replaced others and some that are completely new. Okay, but this is not addressing my question whatsoever. This is pointless fluff. It sounds nice, but it does nothing to address my question, because you've already said, as you mentioned. So this is completely unnecessary and it does nothing. Our customer research indicates that these features will be useful in the daily workflow of many of our customers. Here I have a problem with the tone and the direction of the customer support, because it is dismissive. Even though it's very polite, if you read this carefully, this is a polite dismissal of my inquiry. Because what they're actually saying is that I hear what you're saying, but I don't really care about it, right? Because our customer research indicates that these features will be useful in the daily workflow of many of our customers. There's an end of this sentence that's kind of invisible or typed in white here, which is, and if you don't fall into one of those customers, tough luck. And that's the polite dismissal that I don't really like. Then they address it further by saying, address your wish to have the option of either turning off some of these features or reverting to an older version of, but it's not something that we currently offer, and we are sorry for the inconvenience that this may cause. Okay, they are addressing my issue here, but they are saying, hey, there's nothing we can do. They're not saying we'll look into it. They're not offering an alternative. They're not actually doing anything. This is, again, a very polite dismissal, right? Because, hey, there's nothing I can do, so there you go. And this is the other one. This is now addressing that I am, Voya from My Deep Guide, which was not my goal. I wanted this to be kind of anonymous, but I wasn't thinking about this. I would have preferred this to have been that nobody recognized or something like that. And honestly, I didn't expect them to recognize my name because I wrote from a different email than I usually write when I correspond with these companies. But yeah, this happened there. So this is now kind of fluff that is nice, and it's very, very polite, and I do appreciate it, I definitely do. But I'm not so sure how appropriate it is to be included in a customer support request, because that's kind of crossing two paths, and I'm not sure. Maybe I'm mistaken here, but just my impression is that there's no need for that level of communication of, hey, I recognize you and we appreciate you, and which is all nice and very polite, and I do, as I said, I appreciate it. But in the form of a customer support interaction, I don't know how adequate and relevant this actually is. So then a couple of days later, 2 days later, I got the second reply from Remarkable, which further clarified, let's go clarify the issue. So thanks for your patience while consulted with our developers. And then they go, the Zoom functionality and palm rejection are constantly being worked on and have been improved in software version 3.1 after we did some changes in the 3.0 version. In software version 3.1, we have introduced an improved way of zooming out to native size or the preferred view adjustment, although we're working to improve on this going forward as well. So this response only very vaguely addresses that one of my questions or concerns has been addressed in 3.1, but it's incomplete. It's completely incomplete. And here's what I mean. Well, okay, it has been improved. How? In what way? How has it been improved? I personally know because I am a beta tester, so I know that it now snaps. However, if I wasn't one, and if I was just a normal customer and I don't have access to 3.1, how was it improved? There's no explanation there at all. Then further on, we're currently on version 3.0. So if this is what I'm looking forward to, that it's going to resolve part of my issues, when should I be looking forward to that? So two key pieces of information are really missing, which is how has it been resolved? How has it been improved? And when can I expect this to land on my device? Then they continue, as for the new paper format, scrolling continuous notes, this is something we are working to optimize and which we are working every day to gather insights on based on feedback from our entire user base. This was obviously a big change on our platform in this recent update and something that we will monitor, learn from, and continue to work on. I mean, we're just reading through stuff, and nothing has been said in these two sentences at all. We understand your point of view in terms of wanting to revert to a previous software version. That is actually missing the point, because that was my other question. The point that was actually relevant to the continuous page was something that I specifically asked. Is there a way to toggle this behavior on and off? This has not been addressed, and this has not been addressed in any way from the support reply here, despite them using really a lot of words and being very polite and scoring very high in the communication category in the competency. they are not offering any concrete information at all here. So, however, this is unfortunately not something that we currently offer on our platforms, both the toggling and the reverting back to a previous version of the operating system. So again, really not that good here. Taking all of these above into the account, I would like to let you know that we truly appreciate your thoughts and reviews. And again, we have this same thing that I've already explained in the previous email, is that we recognize you and we're very appreciative, and I am appreciative of that, but I'm simply unsure how adequate it is and how relevant it is to include that type of content in a technical support response or a customer support response that is fairly incomplete and doesn't really, if you dig into it, it doesn't really offer me that much information at all. So it scored 7, and I think that's a very generous mark, simply because I can see that they've tried. There were 2 responses and they were actually trying to be complete. And honestly, I think that the only thing that brings that competency level to a higher level is the competency of the individual worker, customer support worker in this case, because I recognize that this person is doing their best to provide me as much information as they can, but they are working in a very confined space, and they have a very strict set of limitations of what they are allowed to say to their own customers, which is bizarre. But okay, that is the thing. So the company itself scores very low in the competency response, but that score is kind of pulled a lot higher by this individual here. I think she's called Viola, and she did a really good job because she's following the company policies on how the communication should be, what they should do, and following the guidelines and the limitations that she has to work under. So that is the explanation of the score 7, which may seem higher for some, but that's why that's the separation of those two kind of categories. You have to kind of take all of these things into consideration. Then we have Boox scoring a 6 at the competency level, and it's quite low because here's their first response, which is, hello, are you exporting in Reader or in Notes? Well, that's immediately a huge markdown, because I've already said in my first sentence, I am unable to find an option to export my marked up PDF file with handwriting rasterized bitmap data instead of vector data. That's my first sentence. Everything explained. Marked up PDF file with handwriting. And the customer support, the first thing they ask is, are you exporting it in Reader or in Notes? If it's in Note, you can do this. Yes, you have competency there, but it's not relevant. You are not showing me competency that you are focused on this individual case, because you are not paying attention to what has been clearly said in the first sentence of my query. So then I clarify, no, I'm exporting from a PDF, even though I've already said it here. In order to ensure that your exported PDF can be edited on other devices, they are all data embedded documents, and export mode is not supported. It's possible to do it from Notes, so it certainly should be possible to do here, and that's basically what I said here. And then their response to that is, we will submit your suggestion to our product department for negotiations. Thanks for your feedback. So it is a complete interaction. They have actually heard me out and they are taking it into consideration. There's no polite dismissal. There's no politeness here at all, but there's no dismissal at the very least, which is something that the whole entirety response of the Remarkable was based on, which is, I hear what you're saying, but I don't really care. That's the tone of it. This one is, what up? And it's like, basically, what's up? Yeah, where are you exporting it from? Yeah, it's PDF. Yeah, oh no, listen to me. It's from PDF. Oh yeah, no, we don't do that. But yeah, what can you do? It's not supported. Well, can you do something about it? Yeah, okay, I'll send it up to the boss. So you gotta nudge them, and it's not a polite type of interaction. It's not a particularly helpful one, but if you push them and nudge them, they will at least get there. So that's why, the score is not lower, but I think it's a fairly low score here in the competency level of the Boox support. Then we get to the helpfulness, and I think that the Supernote was scoring a very, very high 9, and it scores a 9, not a perfect 10, simply because of that delay. So that delay definitely knocks off a point from the whole experience, but everything else was pretty much perfectly helpful. So unsurprisingly, Remarkable scores a very, very low 4 in helpfulness, because despite the communication being very nice and fluffy and professional, and the customer support worker exhibited a lot of competency, the end result of helpfulness is extremely low, because as I mentioned in detail, they haven't addressed anything really. Like, if you dig into it, they haven't said anything really. They've spoken a lot, but nothing of substance has at all been said. So my request has not been acknowledged. It has been politely dismissed, and that was pretty much it. So, and then we get to the helpfulness of Boox, which was impolite, not really that competent, but when push comes to shove, you do get helpful responses and information that you need, and therefore you do get actually what you need from a customer support interaction, which is the bottom line. That's the whole point, right? And then we get to the final category, which is the problem resolution. And here my scoring system was, everybody started with a score of 1, right? So all of them started with 1, and I knew that none of them can resolve my problem in completeness, because that is something that has to be done with the upcoming OS update, right? So the scoring system was basically how many additional things they were able to provide, such as were you willing to escalate the issue to the support team and basically have it for further evaluation, as Boox did. So that's what gave them 1 extra point, therefore they scored 2. Remarkable was not willing to do any of it. As I said, polite dismissal, lots of fluffy words, but essentially they have done absolutely nothing and have made no commitments whatsoever in regards to the issues that I've asked. So therefore, they get no additional points and they remain on 1, which is the starting point. Supernote scores a 4. Because they get additional 3 points. The first one is that they are acknowledging the issue, that it is there. So they're not dismissing it at all. They're taking it into consideration. Second one, they're already aware of it and they're planning for it. And the third point they've gained was, and they also provided me with additional information to know where in their roadmap and when can I expect roughly to see a resolution to my issue. So 3 additional points on top of the 1 starting one, with this score of 4. And that brings us to the overall tally of the Supernote, Boox, and Remarkable customer support score from this test that I made. And Supernote wins with 7.5 score average, despite the 14-day delay. I could have written earlier, and I'm pretty sure that if I hadn't waited for 14 days, I could have waited like 2 days, then written, and then I would have had that interaction done immediately. So that's why it's not such an entirely big deal, but it is something that you have to kind of keep in mind. So if you're not hearing back from them, ping them an email. They have some holes and some emails do slip through, so something to definitely be aware of. So Remarkable is as scoring at 6.67, and I think that it's scoring like that purely on a technicality and because of basically the nature of customer support and these categories, but the scores are the way they are. In reality, they haven't really helped me out more than Boox did in any way, shape, or form, but my interaction was quicker, the command of the language was better, it was much more understandable, communication was clearer, and all of these things kind of put together, it was a better impression of a customer experience interaction with the Remarkable than it was with Boox, starting with the immediate confirmation email and things like that. So you're immediately involved and you're in a system, and then they exude like this level of professionalism and things like that. And all of that actually accounts for a overall customer support experience in interaction that you might have. And then brings us to Boox, which scored last at the aggregated score of 5. And yeah, it just makes sense because, the interaction is, there's no confirmation email. The interaction is like you're talking to a buddy on the street, or, somebody who's actually quite, not that polite. And it's not that helpful. It's not entirely unhelpful, but it's not that competent. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. And while the platform of having that feedback hub directly implemented in your device is really, really good, I think that their customer service leaves quite a bit of room for improvement here. Yeah, and that would be a good thing for their users. Well, all right, so those are the results of my test for the customer support for the Remarkable, Supernote, and Boox. Let me know what your impression is, what your experiences are, and yeah, if you have any kind of experience with customer support with either of these 3 companies, or even better, if some of you have had experience with more than just one of these companies, what is your real-world experience with the customer support from Boox, Supernote, or Remarkable? Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please do like and subscribe, and ding the notification bell in the description below to get notified when new videos come on My Deep Guide. Also, if you like the work that I do, please do check out the My Daily Organizer on mydeepguide.com/shop, which is a daily organizer file for all of your yearly, weekly, monthly, quarterly, daily needs, including a journaling system that a lot of users seem to be enjoying because it includes points of reflection on a daily matter. So it's not just organizing, it's also a journaling kind of a thing. So an overall system that a lot of people actually have found it to be quite useful. So if you're interested, check the link down below, check the playlist as well to see if MDO is a product that might interest you or not. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.